Give me a countdown. It just gives me a progress bar and it's crawling along.
Bruce, if I need to throw to you, to ask you a question live, can we throw that card up now, Bruce? Will you be able to? You'll be
Yeah, I'll
unmuted,
get it
so
as quick as I can.
no, I just want to know that you'll tell me.
David, we're live.
Go. Welcome to the virtual town hall on the experience of parents and children with disabilities in the school system in the province of Ontario. Good morning, everyone. This is David Lepofsky. I am the chair of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Alliance. I'm also the chair of the Toronto District School Board's Special Education Advisory Committee, and I'm one of your two co-hosts. With me, who I'm going to throw it to in a moment, is Kate Dudley Logue, who's your other co host and who's a vice president of the Ontario Autism Coalition. The AODA Alliance and the Ontario Autism Coalition are co sponsoring and organizing this event. We're delighted you're able to be with us either live or after the video is archived for future viewing on YouTube. A brief introduction of the two organizations that are hosting today's gathering. The AODA Alliance is a voluntary, nonpartisan coalition of people in Ontario who are advocating for accessibility in all aspects of life for people with any kind of disability, a physical disability, mental disability, neurological, psychosocial disability, neurological, learning, intellectual, you name it. If it's a disability, we advocate for them. Our other co host today is my friend and vice president of the Ontario Autism Coalition, Kate Dudley Logue. Kate, what is the Ontario Autism Coalition?
Thank you, David. The Ontario Autism Coalition is a political advocacy organization, and we advocate for lifelong supports for autistics throughout the province of Ontario. And of great advocacy, I should say, of great importance to our advocacy work in the last number of years is education. We have a membership of over 36,000 supporters, families, autistics across the province. And we take great pride in taking stories and voices and using them to help advocate for proper supports in schools. Autistics and all students with disabilities have a right to a safe and meaningful education, and we will continue to advocate for them.
So, why are we getting together today? We are getting together to hear the voices of parents of students with disabilities, and if they're able and have applied, students with disabilities themselves, to hear what's happening on the front lines in Ontario's schools for students with any kind of disability. Back on April 27th, 2026, Ontario's Minister of Education, the Honorable Paul Calandra, made a statement before a standing committee of the Ontario Legislature, a very important one. He acknowledged that special education is delivered very differently from one school board to the next. Ontario has 72 school boards. And he said that he needs to work hard now on trying to fix this. He also acknowledged, as part of the problem, that there's a mental health crisis in Ontario schools. Of course, students with mental health or psychosocial disabilities are among the population of over 350,000 students with disabilities in Ontario schools. His conclusion is very much consistent with the report that the government received over 4 years ago by a nonpartisan expert government appointed committee of both representatives of the disability community and of the community of educators in Ontario, the Kindergarten to Grade 12 Standards Development Committee. It rendered a report to the province of Ontario back in January of 2022, identifying that there are many barriers in Ontario schools impeding students with disabilities. It also provided a roadmap on how to fix these things. So, to assist the minister and the Ontario government, we wanted to provide an opportunity for them to hear the unfiltered message from parents and the front lines of the school system itself. And that's why we've convened this town hall. We have invited participants to make a presentation to us of what their child is experiencing. And we're going to get in just a moment to those presentations. A word on accommodations to be provided. This event is being live streamed on YouTube. As well, we are providing American Sign Language interpretation and real-time captioning. We want to thank the Arch Disability Law Center for sponsoring the those two accommodations and the interpreters and transcribers who are providing that. Bruce, if you're able to now or in a few minutes, could you put up the link? You can get the captioning in the chat on YouTube through YouTube's live captioning. But you may, there's also a website where you'll be able to see the captioning for those on Zoom, i.e., our participants, our speakers. You'll also be able to get it through the Zoom interface. So, how are we going to approach today? We are going to ask each presenter essentially to answer two questions. What barriers or obstacles has your child faced in an Ontario school based that impedes their learning by virtue of their disability? What are the disability impediments or barriers they've faced? And to be constructive, what do you recommend be done to help fix it? We've set some ground rules out. The first is that we are not filtering who speaks. We have taken people on a first come, first served basis. I don't even know who's going to be speaking or what they're going to be saying as we call on each person to speak. Second, because the time is so limited and we want to fit in everybody who wants to, or at least as many as we can, we are asking our speakers to limit themselves to 3 minutes. And Kate will give you a warning when we're getting close. Now, we want to recognize fully that talking about this is difficult. And cramming it into 3 minutes is incredibly hard. In fact, we understand that it's hard to cram it into twice that amount of time. But because we want to accommodate everybody and recognizing how hard this is, we are asking our speakers to do their best to fit within that difficult request. As well, respecting everyone's privacy, educators, students, and families. We will only be asking our speakers, we'll only be calling on them by their first name. We're asking them not to identify their child's name or the child's school or the names of any of the staff that they deal with. And the only thing we're going to ask, if they're prepared to do it, is to tell us what school board they're discussing. But if they don't want to do that, they're welcome to. And they're welcome to have their camera on or off as they prefer. So let's hear from our parents. By the way, up in advance, I want to tell you about some of our unsung heroes who you don't get to see. In the back room doing all the tech support is my good friend and incredible disability advocate, Bruce McIntosh. And we have a phenomenal Osgoode Hall Law student who's volunteering to assist us, I'm sorry to stumble, Nabia Nasir, and she's been the one that our speakers have been corresponding with. So with that, over to you, Kate. Who is our first speaker?
Thank you, David. Our first speaker is Yvonne, which I'll bring on in a moment. I just sort of more to what David said in terms of keeping in time. We are going to attempt to put a timer in up on the screen once the speaker has started talking. I believe it should appear in the top right corner. You might need to toggle your mouse in order for it to appear. I will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, just to give you the heads up that you should be coming to a conclusion. And at the 3-minute mark, I will ask you to complete your remarks. Again, we really don't want to have to cut anyone off. We want to hear everybody's whole stories, but we also want to make sure we get through our speaker list in the time we have here this morning.
And one more thing, just before you give us the first name, and of course, we want to emphasize this. Back on June 3rd, we invited the Minister of Education, Paul Calandra, to watch this program. We said we're organizing it to assist him. And we invited him to be able to come on and make a few remarks himself. I regret we did not hear back from him. If he does show up, we would be quite happy to give him a short time slot to be able to just speak to everyone. And but in any event, we will be making this video available on YouTube on a permanent basis, and we'll be writing him and urging him to listen, because we believe it's fundamentally important for the Minister of Education and his whole ministry to hear what parents of students with disabilities have to say. Kate?
Thank you. No, that's a very good point, David. Minister Calandra has made it quite clear that he's interested in outcomes. And right here today, we're going to be hearing the reality of what families and students are experiencing in our schools. So without further ado, we will go to our first speaker, Yvonne. Go ahead, Yvonne. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting people to have this opportunity. I think this is really wonderful. The difficulties that that I've experienced is that we've had difficulty getting diagnosed due to minimal funding for this. My child was fairly high functioning and without an actual diagnosis. And it was just left to them to try and figure their own way out, especially when they reached secondary school level, where there's significantly less support than at the elementary school level, particularly for families with moderate income, multiple children, and minimal extra insurance coverage. And they could be facing other challenges, as many families do during those times. So diagnosis was really, really difficult. And unfortunately, they struggled quite a bit through the school system. The system needs more funding to assist with families who are struggling. And more assistance, particularly at the secondary school level, is a must, because these individuals are just kind of left to figure it out on their own. And honestly, they get left behind and fall through the cracks, leading to bigger issues in adulthood, because that leads to, not being able to finish secondary school. You're unable to find good employment and to move forward with life, and end up not feeling successful either, which leads to mental health issues later in life as well. So I just wanted to express my thoughts related to, particularly in the secondary school level, it's very difficult for them if they're undiagnosed in elementary.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your candor in explaining it in a way that I think is easy for everyone to understand and sympathize with. Kate?
Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. Our second speaker is Jennifer. Do we have Jennifer here ready to go? Hi, Jennifer. You're our next speaker. Feel free to go ahead, please.
Jennifer, we're not hearing you. I don't know if you're muted.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we got you. Thanks,
Okay.
Jennifer.
Before I begin, I would like, yes,
Speaker, feel free to go ahead, please.
can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay. Before I begin, I would like everyone here to do a
Jennifer,
backflip.
we're not hearing you. I don't know if you're muted.
So,
Oh,
thanks, Jennifer.
sorry, give me a second. I think maybe there's an echo happening. Can you hear me
You
now?
need to close the YouTube screen so that you
Okay.
don't
I'm
have us
actually,
come.
David,
I
I
think
can
that was
hear
the
her
issue.
just
Can you
fine.
hear
I
me?
don't know.
Yep. hmm
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so before I begin, I would like everyone watching here to do a backflip right now. If you don't know how, I'll teach you. Jump up, tuck your legs in, and land. If you don't do a backflip, I'm going to assume that you're being defiant, refusing to cooperate, and not trying hard enough. How did that feel? Were you thinking, I know what a backflip is, but that doesn't mean I can do one? Maybe you could do one, or maybe you don't have the capacity. A backflip is a skill set. Self-regulation is also a skill set. If we understand that doing a backflip depends on skill and capacity, why is self-regulation treated as a choice? One of the biggest barriers my child faces at school is how disability-related behavior is interpreted. Behaviors like emotional outbursts or impulsivity are often treated as intentional misbehavior when they are actually signs of dysregulation or delayed self-regulation skills. A meltdown is not manipulation. Dysregulation is not defiance. When my child has an outburst, staff may respond with reminders or loss of privileges, but these responses do not build missing skills or address underlying needs. Many neurodivergent students are treated as though self-regulation challenges are behavior problems rather than disability-related needs. This creates barriers to learning, belonging, and emotional safety. I have two recommendations. My first recommendation is neurodiversity informed training for all staff. So disability related behavior is recognized as a need, not a character flaw. This cannot be generic training. It must be grounded in neurodiversity affirming practice and shaped by people with lived experience. Outdated thinking about disability and behavior cannot continue shaping how students are treated. At the same time, even strong training is difficult to apply when classrooms are stretched beyond capacity. My second recommendation is to reduce class
30
sizes.
seconds remaining, Jennifer.
Okay. Many students need additional support even without an IEP, including needs related to self-regulation. Class size caps are based only on numbers, special education based on IEPs, but these leave many students untracked and unfunded. As a result, the classroom work to support these children is invisible. No staffing, no funding. Burnout increases, supportive responses become harder.
You've reached the 3-minute mark. If you could just finish up your remarks, that would be great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure. Neurodiversity training and smaller class sizes are not special accommodations. They're foundational investments that allow educators to support the reality of today's classrooms. We need to give the educators the knowledge and capacity to support all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much.
That was
Okay.
really great. Thank you, Jennifer. Moving on to our third speaker, we'll welcome Kirsten Marcelin to share her story with us.
Welcome. You got 3 minutes.
Is Kirsten here? There is Kirsten. Hi, Kirsten.
Welcome.
Welcome you to
I'm
go
Dave.
ahead and start. You have 3 minutes. And I will remind you with 30 seconds remaining that you are to start coming to a conclusion with your remarks. Go ahead, Kirsten.
We're not hearing you. You may be muted.
Sorry.
There we go. Go ahead, Kirsten. Thank
Okay.
you.
That you were to start coming to a conclusion with your remarks.
Sorry, could you close your YouTube
I get this,
connection?
sorry. Okay, so sorry, what's going on here?
No problem. Go
Okay,
for
is
it.
that better?
Yep.
Okay, so I lead my advocacy with a fundamental belief that a child who requires a significant amount of support is still entitled to an education that's genuinely accessible to him. I'm an assistive device user myself. I rely on assistive technology to complete tasks that my body simply cannot do. And at school, access to assistive tech, it's not based on vibes. It's not like parental wishes. These are essential accommodations that let children safely navigate school. My 6-year-old son, he's a complex communicator, and he was previously in the DDSB. He relies on a stable motor plan and prescribed speech producing assistive tech for expressive communication. His device, consistent access to it, integration of it, it's unique. It's all him. It has to be everywhere at school. And it's not. It's not in the hallways. It's not in the library. It's not in the technology that they use. For the most part, he's just a kid with a speech producing device. And when you're 4 or 5 or 6, this isn't a model that really supports the big macro transition to school, along with the acquisition of language that he's working on in the background. His assisted tech was largely treated as voluntary rather than essential. And this happened in ways that were both subtle and sort of very major ways. In everyday conversations where it was just expected that he would be able to speak, and there was no extra time for the motor planning that it takes to produce language with his assistive tech. He was put on the list for school-based rehab in the Durham District School Board in September of his JK year. By mid-year, grade 1, 2.5 years later, he remained in queue with thousands of children ahead of him. We can't acknowledge that children need these broad community-based resources to support them at school and then not deliver them for 7 to 10 years. It's a model that's just not working. We need actual early intervention to set kids up to be successful at school, particularly when they don't communicate in a way that we acknowledge as acceptable.
Kirsten, 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to solutions, but I could talk all day about this. We need IPRC placements in classrooms that actually accommodate these skills. We can't ask our teachers to also be SLPs. There's so much work to be done. And, I'll leave it with this: voice matters. And there's really and truly so much room for growth in our schools. And I want to shout you guys all out for doing this and taking the time to put this together at the OEC and the AODA. I love the work that you guys are doing. It really supports our kids every day. So thank you. And just keep telling the stories. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for your advocacy. And just while we're getting our next speaker on, and if our next speaker can be sure to unmute and close your window, your YouTube window, I just want to let people know that we'll be offering resources during these couple of hours that will help parents. One is I host a podcast which gives you action tips on how to do advocacy on disability issues. It's going to be helpful, I hope, for all parents. Wherever you get your podcasts, except YouTube, it's not on YouTube. I'll tell you how to find it. It's called Disability Rights and Wrongs. Now, here are the key terms. The David Le Podcast. David and then LE Podcast. If you search for it, you'll find it. And upcoming episodes will be focusing on education in the schools. So please, wherever you get your podcasts, give it a listen. The David Le Podcast. Kate, who's next?
Well, next we had Andrea, but we don't seem to see her in our waiting room. So we're moving on to the next speaker. Andrea, if you are watching, try to reconnect with the Zoom feed and we'll see if we can put you up at the end. Our next speaker will be Valerie and Rick. Go ahead, Valerie and Rick. You've got 3 minutes.
Hey there. Welcome aboard.
We're experiencing a very loud echo, so I think our Zoom is off, but I don't know about everybody else.
It says we're muted.
No, we could hear you, but you maybe still have your YouTube window open.
Well,
And
we
if
don't
you
have
do,
YouTube on. It's off, but I think someone else might have it.
We can hear you.
I can hear you, actually. You're good. Yeah.
Okay, we are parents of a successful graduate of the TDSB. We hold PhDs in our son. We were actively involved in school councils, parent conferences, inclusion forums across this 14-year journey. What disability barriers have we faced? In a word, attitude. In most encounters with school administrators and teachers, we repeatedly faced negativity.
Sorry, you just dropped out after the word negativity.
Yeah, I can't hear you anymore. That is bizarre.
We can, maybe what we should do is let's go to our next speaker and then get Val and Rick back after they try to sort that out. Nabia, if you could just write them and let them know we're going to do that.
Okay. Our next.
David, excuse me, David, if I may. For some reason, they were signed in twice. Sound was coming through one and video through the other. So there's, in order to get rid of the echo.
They should only sign in once.
Yeah. So I put the other one back in the waiting room, and the one that's feeding us video was muted. It is no longer. I think you can proceed, Val and Rick.
Oh, are we good? Can we hear you now, Val and Rick? Oh, Val and Rick, can we hear you now, Val and Rick?
Rick, I think we are hearing you, but you've got an echo there. If you could turn your volume down, but
You hear us again?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Okay, sorry about that. I think we were in two, like you said. Okay, I'll start over really quickly. We are parents of a successful graduate of the TDSB. We hold PhDs in our son. We're actively involved in school council, parent conferences, and forums. What disability barriers have we faced? In a word, it's attitude. In most encounters with school administrators and teachers, we repeatedly face negativity rather than a solution-focused approach. Our involvement in advocating for our son was met with one or more of these responses. Number one was blame the student.
He's not taking enough responsibility. He's lazy.
Number two was blame the parents.
Your expectations are too high. Stop being a helicopter parent.
Number three is blame the system.
We have so many students who have such high needs.
These negative attitudes were not helpful. How did these look in our lives? Here is one brief example.
I arrived at the school over the lunch hour. I did not find my son, then in elementary school, eating his lunch with other students in the gym. I found him in an oversized storage closet, unsupervised, with no windows. The students in there with him said they'd been there for several weeks and did not anticipate getting out until the end of the school year. Unsolicited, the students in this makeshift lunchroom described themselves as the bad kids. They had integrated others' perceptions of them into their own young identities. We actively advocated for our son to be integrated into mainstream classrooms for the non-academic subjects, citing success stories within other mainstream social recreational programming outside of the TDSB, such as hockey, soccer, and music. Why did we experience resistance from his teachers and principals so often? Attitude.
Your son can't do that. We don't have the staff to ensure everybody's safety.
What needs to change? One, recognition that accessing the curriculum is a legislated right, not a privilege. Two, more consistent implementation of universal teaching methods and differentiated instruction as needed. Research into inclusive education is not new. Its benefits are enhanced academic and social outcomes. Research also tells us that when mainstream world crosses disability world, we all win. At the end of the school day, inclusion only works if the appropriate academic and social support for each student continues within the classroom, the playground, and in the lunchrooms.
30 seconds remaining, Val and Rick.
You're done. Thanks.
The only thing is we did narrow it down to one example. We had you have many on this 14-year journey we went through.
And we would have loved to have had our son advocate today on his behalf, but he's actually working.
Yeah, he's doing well. Thank you.
Oh, well, that's good. Thank you so much for that. Some very important points, and it's such a sad reality. And thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
I almost was going to add, he's doing very well despite the TDSB.
All right, well, thank you very much. If people heard a crackle, I think that was coming from their particular computer, but that notwithstanding the crackle, the powerful message of these parents came through loud and clear. Kate, as we're getting our next speaker lined up, just a note to say to everyone that we appreciate, respect, and encourage the courage that parents are showing today in being ready to make these statements and to do so in a public place. We know that not all parents feel comfortable doing this, and we respect their choice, whichever way they choose to go. Our goal is to amplify the voices of parents of students with disabilities. This town hall is just one place and one way that the AODA Alliance, the Ontario Autism Coalition, and other allies are working to do this. Kate, who's our next guest?
Thank you. Well, our next speaker was going to be Sonia, but we don't once again don't seem to see her in our waiting room. But we have next on our speakers list is Mercedes. So Mercedes, thank you for joining us today. You'll have 3 minutes. I will come on at the when you have 30 seconds remaining and let you know.
Awesome. Please make sure your YouTube window is closed so we don't get feedback. Oh, great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Well, good
Thanks,
morning.
Mercedes.
Thank you for having me. I am here as a parent of 2 autistic children who have both struggled to access appropriate supports within Ontario's education system. For years, I have advocated for my daughter and asked for support she needed to be successful in school. Time and time again, I was told that there was not enough resources, not enough staff, and not enough funding. Instead of providing the support she required to remain in school, the solution became to removing her from the classroom altogether. Today, she receives home instruction. This September, she will finally begin a social skills placement, but only after I spoke publicly and went to the media. No parent should have to take their child's story to the media in order to receive adequate support. Access to education should not depend on how loudly a family can advocate. The hardest part has been watching her lose valuable opportunities to learn alongside her peers, develop friendships, and build social and communication skills that naturally provides. While her peers can continue and learn to grow together, she has spent much of her education isolated from those experiences. My son is also in a social skills placement, and after years of struggling, he is now happily excelling, and I'm happy to say that, because he received the adequate support and adequate services that were necessary. However, it often felt like meaningful action did not come or occur until his behaviors became a risk to staff. For years, concerns were raised about how support staff was requested, and children should not have to reach crisis points before accessing the resources they need available. As an autistic parent, I understand that every child has unique needs. What I struggle to understand is why those needs are so often unmet because of funding limitations. I've repeatedly been told that staffing shortages, limited resources, and funding constraints prevent schools from providing the level of supports that students need. Yet the cost of not providing these services is far greater. Children are removed from classrooms, placed on reduced schedules, and removed to home instruction without meaningful access to their education. And safety is a huge concern. Within the Simcoe County District School Board, there are no clear elopement policies to support students who leave classroom or school property. In February, my daughter left school property and was not followed and almost hit by a car. It is a tragic story that thankfully didn't end up on the news because I followed her and had a gut instinct. Families should not have to worry about whether their children's safety can be maintained or resources available. This solution is not complicated. Schools need adequate and stable funding to ensure that students with disabilities receive the supports they require. Additional assistance, specialized staff, and training and safety support should be treated as optional. They are essential for students that access their education. My children deserve the same opportunity to learn, participate, and belong in schools. Every child in Ontario deserves the same opportunity.
30 seconds.
We cannot continue to access a system where the lack of funding determines whether a child can access their education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your powerful remarks.
I
And
apologize. I also have autism, so I'm very anxious myself, but I got it done.
you were fantastic, and you did not sound the least bit nervous, anxious, or
Well, I appreciate
anything.
you. Thank you for your advocacy. We appreciate you.
Listen, parents are the key to their children's success when it comes to kids with disabilities. I know I had an amazing mother, and we are hearing from other amazing parents. When you read your remarks to us today, it's important that we hear them, but feel free to share them also. A number of you are reading from text, and that's great. Send them to the Premier of Ontario.
I have, and the
His
Ministry of Education, as well as the
that
Ministry of Community and Children's Social Services.
That's fantastic. And just for all our listeners, our viewers, I'm going to just tell you as we get our next speaker in from the waiting room, I'm going to tell you the Premier's email address. It's really easy, or it's easy. It's just premier@ontario.ca. That's premier@ontario.ca. Sharing your story helps in all of our collective advocacy. Kate, who's our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Shannon, but before we get to her, I just want to say again, for anybody that we have skipped over, if you thought you were next on the list, we've only skipped you over if we can't see you in our waiting room. So if you're having connection problems and you still do want to speak, please try and reconnect with our Zoom and we will fit you in at the end if there is time. Thank you. So we'll go ahead to Shannon. Shannon, you'll have 3 minutes to speak and I'll come on at the 30 seconds remaining mark and let you know. Thank you. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hi, I wanted to can you hear me?
You sure can.
Okay, I wanted to take a moment to talk about what it took to get my 7-year-old son a specialized classroom placement through the OCDSB here in Ottawa. This was not a simple process. It was not a quick phone call or a straightforward solution. It took months of navigating systems, red tape, barriers, asking questions, showing up, and refusing to let his needs be overlooked. In January, we made the difficult decision to transfer from the Catholic to the public board, hoping for more support. But he had to remain in a mainstream to be assessed for 6 months. 28 days into his new school in January, he was excluded to a modified 2-school day. This was because they didn't have the resources to keep him there safely for a full day. As a parent, watching your child in that kind of struggle while trying to access support is incredibly difficult. During this time, I lost my job. It was a level of strain that touched our family, and I don't wish it upon anybody. So what we did is we advocated, we asked questions, documented everything, kept showing up. We were met with a nearly $3,000 psychoeducational assessment out of pocket, an exhausting reality that we had to prove over and over again that we already knew. He needed more support. Eventually, it became about getting louder because we couldn't afford to keep waiting. This is what it took: media, delegations, speeches, advocacy, an appealed IPRC, rallies, countless meetings, and emails just to bring the attention to the gaps that families face when systems don't move quickly enough. After an endless fight, he finally received a mid-year specialized classroom placement on April 28th at a brand new school. It's a class that finally fits him. Smaller class size, multiple specialized trained staff, instruction at his level, van transportation, and full days. He is finally now thriving at school. But the reality is, families should not have to fight this hard. They shouldn't have to reach the point of exhaustion or crisis level to get their child an education and support they deserve.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, this is not just our story. There are so many families quietly living the same situation across the province. This is what I hope. I hope that we continue building systems where children don't have to struggle, exhaust themselves to burnout, or reach a breaking point before their needs are acknowledged. Every child deserves to be seen, heard, believed, and supported from the beginning. Thank you.
That was tremendous, and you've highlighted, among other things, the recurring problem of students with disabilities who are excluded from school by their school, even though they're supposed to have and do have in law the right to an education, either being excluded for the whole day or just part of the school day. If you are facing these problems, I encourage people to contact the Arch Disability Law Center, the sponsors of our sign language and captioning today. They run, or they have a group that can provide legal advice and assistance to parents of students with disabilities who are being refused the right to attend school either for the entire day or for part of the day. So we encourage you to check that out. Kate, tell me who our next speaker is.
Yes, our next speaker is John. And before we get to John, though, I did want to just highlight, we've seen multiple speakers here today who have had to go to media and really go above and beyond to get attention on their situation. And this really shouldn't have to be the case. A family should not have to put their vulnerable situation out to the whole world in order to get attention on things. I just wanted to point that out.
And if you want, just before, as you're bringing our next speaker in from the waiting room, I'll just also share, we want to pepper our discussion with practical advice and tips for people. I mentioned earlier my podcast, the David La Podcast, episode number 4, gives you tips on how to go to the media from a very experienced former journalist who herself has a disability and gave us really good advice on what a reporter needs if you want to give them a story to make it to give you a good chance to have the story published in the media. Kate?
Thank you, David. We'll go ahead with John. John, you've got 3 minutes to tell your story. I will chime in when you have 30 seconds remaining to let you know. Okay.
Welcome, John.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity here. Yeah, my name is John, and my younger son is in SK at the TDSB. He has a physical disability, and he uses a wheelchair to get around. And I want to say at the outset, the teachers and staff at our school have been absolutely incredible and supportive, and they've gone way above and beyond, their job description to help our son succeed in a system that has failed him and continues to fail him. We're very fortunate for that, and we know that there's lots of families that aren't so lucky. And despite that, the system has failed to remove the existing barriers to his education, access to his education, and in some cases, the system itself has put up those barriers. So first, even though the TDSB has classified our school as accessible, the school building has several accessibility problems. I can talk about those at length later. I'd like to focus on some other things today, because even if the facilities were adequate, the lack of adequate staffing and support from the TDSB is a barrier itself. Our son has certain daily care needs for his health and safety, and he requires consistency in that care. But the TDSB does not and will not provide a dedicated special needs assistant to him or to any student with special needs, as far as we understand. That means the responsibility for his care falls on teachers and staff instead. And that story is the same for every other kid at our school with special needs, whether they're physical needs or social, emotional, or other developmental needs. So because there's just not enough staff to serve our kids, sometimes those needs go unmet. We've had to leave work, my partner and I, unexpectedly to do that care. And we're fortunate we're flexible to do that, but it's not right that falls on us. The system is failing us. And where does this take us? The system seems to be built to actively divide us as a parent community, and it limits our ability to come together as a community and advocate for changes to the system that will help kids like my son, kids like other people with other kinds of disabilities, or kids that are developing normally, don't have a disability at all. So it's just a quick story. One of my son's classmates has an autism diagnosis, and that means our children's teacher and ECE had to attend to my kid's physical needs, attend to his classmates' social and developmental needs, and manage a classroom of 30 plus kindergartners. What happened is that our son has a wheelchair. It looks like a race car, and that's fascinating to the other kid. We thought if we can get more resources in the classroom, that helps both of them, right? But we were told only focus on your child. Don't talk about the larger thing. How are we supposed to advocate for our system? And so the thing that needs to change to remove these barriers, I think, is for
30
the
seconds
system.
remaining.
Thank you. For the system to actually try. The physical and staffing barriers are not unsolvable problems. They require some effort, and they require the ability of the staff to think ahead and, take these needs seriously. Not run it like a business, but run it like a system that is trying to provide the best quality of service to our children together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Just as we transition to our next speaker, I just want to mention a couple of things. One, as the chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee for the Toronto District School Board, I just want to share the fact that the public thinks, schools, they're public buildings, they must be accessible. The vast majority of Ontario schools are not accessible to people with mobility disabilities, whether kids or teachers or families or parents or the broader community. Not only that, the standards that school boards like TDSB and the province of Ontario use to judge whether a school is accessible are grossly inadequate and do not live up to the accessibility requirements in the Ontario Human Rights Code. And what John had to say is illustrative of that. Making this worse, the provincial government every year or so announces another billion or more in spending to build new schools, but they still don't use the proper standards when new schools are built to ensure that they're accessible. Those standards have been communicated to the government back in 2022 by an expert committee that the government itself appointed, but they are not using it. The other thing I want to just say, as a resource for parents listening for advocacy, Bruce, I don't know if you've got the card ready to put up. If not, we can do it later. But I've got two videos online that you may find helpful. They're both on YouTube. One is called Tips for Parents of Students with Disabilities on How to Advocate for Your Child at School. Just search on Tips for Parents of Students with Disabilities. That video will hopefully be very helpful for you. The other is this. We hear that the law requires schools and others to accommodate the needs of people with disabilities. The duty to accommodate people with disabilities is part of the Human Rights Code, but a lot of people don't know what the duty to accommodate means. So I recorded a video to explain it. It's called Introduction to the Duty to Accommodate People with Disabilities. Introduction to the Duty to Accommodate People with Disabilities. Look it up on YouTube, and I hope you find it helpful. Kate, who's next?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emily. Emily, thank you for joining us. You'll have 3 minutes. We're trying to put a timer up in the corner that you might be able to see, but I will also come on at the 30-second mark remaining to let you know. Thank you.
Good.
Go
Sounds
ahead.
good. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having me here. Such a great, important topic. I'll get right into it. So, my son used to be an eloper. And for those of you who may not know, that means he would run out of the classrooms, out of the building, away from supervision, because the environment around him was more than what his nervous system could regulate. And we know that this is largely due to his autism diagnosis. So this is not a behavioral problem. And this is what a child is telling our staff in school that with his whole body, that the supports around him don't match his needs. So this past couple years, he had the chance to be in a smaller, what they call an academic resource class. It's not necessarily specific for children with autism. It's to help accelerate reading and writing and math. But because he had that opportunity to be in there, he had the smaller class size benefit, the structure he needed, the guidance on like what to do as he would go throughout the day. This changed him into a completely different child. He is thriving. He is learning. He has made friends. He is safe. That, what I want, the province, our leadership to understand and see is that's what appropriate support looks like and works. The sad thing is not every child is going to have opportunity to that. Next year, this option is gone. With budget cutbacks, it means he'll be placed in a class almost triple the size with no dedicated support assigned to him. So the same child who was eloping before, had the right environment, is now being put back into conditions for where he was eloping before. So I'm going in now, just kind of worried that is this going to happen again? Is he going to regress? And one thing I want to say is I want to be direct about something, is that inclusion into mainstream classrooms is the right goal, but inclusion without supports that make it possible isn't inclusion. It's abandonment with better optics. A child placed in a room he can't function in isn't actually included. He's actually set up to fail and then blamed for the failure. So these supports, educational assistance, resource classes, appropriately sized classrooms for kids with complex needs are not political talking points to be traded off in a budget cycle. They are how a disabled child accesses their legal right to an education in this province. And I think we have an obligation to make sure that we're honoring that. So I guess I'll finish with my son's progress these past couple of years prove that the right supports work, the right environment, the right support, the right structure. The question is whether inclusion is the right goal. We know it is. The question is whether Ontario is willing to fund the thing that actually makes inclusion real instead of just funding the word. That is my piece. That's what I wanted to
Thank you very much. I want to just draw on 2 points for parents to think of. What a magnificent way of putting it. Inclusion without the proper supports is abandonment. And that's a turn of phrase that has a lot of power behind it. The other thing that we draw from among other things that we can draw from this important expression by a parent is it's not all bad news. We have examples where our education system is effectively meeting the needs of students with disabilities. So we can turn to those examples and draw from them and say, here's where it's working well. Let's do more of that.
Yes.
But on the other hand, there's also the risk that when it's going well, some bureaucrat somewhere decides that it's time for a cut or a change, and one that puts the child's education at risk and the parent's mental health at risk. Both are lose-lose decisions. Thank you so much. And Kate, who's our next speaker?
Yes, thank you, David. That was great, Emily. Thank you. Our next speaker is Samantha. Samantha, are you here? I don't see her on. Oh, there she is. Hi, Samantha. You are our next speaker. If you are ready to go, you will have 3 minutes. We have a timer that we'll set up in the right-hand corner on the top, and I will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining to let you know. Okay, thanks, Samantha. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can. Go
Okay,
for
hi.
it.
Thank you. My name is Samantha, and I'm the mom of an 11-year-old son in the Upper Grand District School Board who has complex disabilities, autism level 1, and the challenges that he's facing mostly at school have to do with his anxiety. He also has anxiety disorders, and the acceptance and validation of the needs that he has around the anxiety. He is similar to what the two parents were talking about the negativity. There's a lot of negativity that he faces from teachers, principals, and especially the front staff around his anxiety. They say that he's not having a panic attack. They don't assist him. They seem to not know anything about anxiety at all. And this leads to school refusal and a lot of absences. He hardly goes to school at all because the anxiety and the unmet needs are so hard. And also, he reads the disappointment and the anger and the negativity from the staff as disappointment in himself, which then turns into a lot of mental health issues for him. So what he needs is a a smaller classroom more focused on him. He has autism. He also has learning disabilities and anxiety. He also needs for the adults at the school to have some more education around what anxiety looks like and how to validate children who are feeling those feelings so that they can feel safe to come back to school, because he often calls home to be home, and then he will not go back to school because it's too dangerous for him. And instead of him having more courage or being pushing through it, it's creating a complete mental and physical breakdown. Then he can't walk and he has motor difficulties. So I need the staff to be trained in mental health issues, and also for his classroom to be smaller, and for him to have safe adults who are actually safe adults.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, just not calling them safe adults. These safe adults need to spend time with him to gain trust to be a safe adult. The teachers or administration often say, well, I'm a safe adult. I'm like, does he even know your name? Like, because you say you're safe doesn't mean you're safe to my son. You have to spend time with him to gain trust to then be a safe adult he can count on. So that's what we're looking at for help for my son. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Kate, while we're getting the next speaker in, I just want to make a few points drawing from this important message. The first is when you say accommodating students with disabilities, some bureaucrats just think, oh my God, we don't have enough money, or politicians say we've given so much money. A lot of the accommodations that our kids need don't cost anything. Telling a student with anxiety the staff member's name doesn't cost a dime. The second thing I want to say is this. We've heard from politicians of all stripes that there's a mental health crisis in the schools, and that schools need to be doing much more about it. And that's great. But our special education system systemically discriminates against kids with psychological, mental health, or psychosocial disabilities. Why is that? Because our out-of-date special education legislation does not include a mental health disability as a recognized condition. You've heard that term exceptionality that applies for who you've got to have an exceptionality if you are to be eligible for special education. But a psychological or psychosocial disability like an anxiety disorder is not included. The, the exceptionality they recognize is called behavior. So if a child has a mental health condition that leads to problematic behavior, then they are entitled to special education. But if not, they don't. But overriding our special education laws, which have this huge and inexcusable hole in it, is the Human Rights Code, which requires all school boards to accommodate the needs of students with any kind of disability, including a mental health condition such as an anxiety disorder. The third thing I want to say is this. Um, we heard about a child here who may choose not to go to school because of the anxiety disorder and how it is affected by the failure to accommodate. So the Human Rights Code violation undermines their attendance. The Minister of Education has made a priority out of tackling the problem of absenteeism in high school. And yet, the solution for students with disabilities that the minister has proposed is not a solution. He just proposes exempting students with special education needs from his strategy. Rather, that strategy needs to tackle the causes of absenteeism by some students with disabilities, such as the child we just heard about. Providing better supports will make that child more willing to go to school and will reduce absenteeism. That goes from a lose-lose situation to a win-win situation. Kate, who's our next speaker?
Well, sorry, David. I'm the mythical Kate. there's terrible weather in Ottawa, and her power went down just for a moment. So as soon as her Wi-Fi comes back on, she'll be rejoining us. In the meantime, our next guest is Lubecca Liu.
Lubecca, and that's
And
Bruce
she
McIntosh,
is
who's our tech backroom genius and is also founding president and board member of the Ontario Autism Coalition. All right, do we have our
Thank
speaker
you
on?
kindly, David. The check is in the mail.
It'll bounce like the last one. Wah, wah, wah. All right, is our next speaker in and ready to go?
She's
Lubecca?
in. I'm waiting for her to start video and unmute.
Okay, you've got to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can. Go ahead. You got 3 minutes, and Bruce will let you know when you got 30 seconds left.
Thank you, David. I just heard about what you say. I totally agree because I also work in the TDSB. I did see lots of opportunities for the educators to learn and understand the family's stress and their concerns, but they don't want to listen. So here is my story. My older daughter is a high function autistic, but her legal rights were ignored by the TDSB high schools again and again. The communication between schools and the family was blocked for different kinds of excuses and reasons. We tried two schools, A and B. The staff in A school could not communicate with each other properly, which caused a huge emotional damage to my daughter. So she quit the school for half a year. Her current home school cannot provide a reason, which is B, cannot provide a reasonable support to her, although they have an ASD program. No IEP, no accommodation, and RPRC meeting even. Staff often see her intellect before her autism, which causes lots of misunderstanding and mistreatment. Currently, her request to transfer to a new school that is much closer to our home than the home school was denied because they say the School C said they don't have the ASD program and many courses for us to select, like the homeschool. Although we found many good things and matched my daughter's needs, and tell them we never be placed in ASD program because she is mild autistic. So I want to advocate for autistic families here as an important role in public education. School should always be aware of its social responsibility and improve the service. I suggest that TDSB can enhance the awareness of autism. The April 2nd World Autism Day should be announced in a better way, just an email or some posters. Educate the staff and other students that autism is a neurological disorder because it is an invisible disability. But within understanding of it and provide accommodation, the triggers can be removed. I volunteered in Toronto Zoo for many years, and every year we have to take a mandatory course called the Cultural City Sensory Inclusive Certification to help the public to
30
accommodate.
seconds remaining.
Thank you. Individuals with an autism and other sensory processing needs. Our bad experience is documented in CES Ontario Superior Court of Justice and the Mental Health Care System, but there is no way to hold anyone accountable in TDSB, although it is clear where these mistakes are. We hold the boundaries for the safety of our children and the society. We don't want our children to hurt anyone when they're emotional. The 2018 Toronto van attack happened in front of TDSB building is enough to address the issue that exists in the system.
Hi, Rebecca, you've run out of time. If you could just finish up with a final statement. Thank you.
Yes, that criminal is a high function autistic. Thank you for listening. And
Thank you very much. And as Bruce brings our next speaker in, and Kate, welcome back. I just want to offer a couple of suggestions to our our viewers, everyone. And that is, if you want to do more in this area, to learn more and do more and get plugged in, I'm going to offer you two solutions. The first is connect up with the Ontario Autism Coalition. They've got a Facebook page with over 30,000 followers, and you'll learn lots of what's going on there. And I encourage you to sign up. The other is the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Alliance, which is the coalition I chair. To sign up for our email updates, go to our webpage, which I'll just tell it to you right now, is www.aodaalliance.org. Again, aodaalliance.org. And right near the top of the page, there's a link to sign up for our newsletter. Just click it and you paste in your email and you'll get our updates. And if for any reason they stop coming, sometimes our system boots some emails out, just resubscribe. All of our updates will keep you posted on this and other issues, and we'll also offer you tips on how you can help. Kate, who's our next speaker?
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Catherine. Thank you for joining us, Catherine. You'll have 3 minutes. The timer will be reset up in the corner for you, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I start now?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Great. Good morning. My name is Catherine, and I'm the mother of a high support needs autistic student who's thriving at Eastdale Collegiate, one of the last dedicated special needs high schools in downtown Toronto. Earlier this year, the board and the Office of the Supervisor, under the ministry's guidance, began closing Eastdale, citing low enrollment, but the rationale does not hold up to scrutiny. The board is almost certainly closing the school to sell the land for condos, and this fraudulent misrepresentation of facts casts doubt on whether either party is committed to serving the best interests of special needs students. My son's progress is a testament to why Eastdale matters. Its smaller learning environment, low student-to-teacher ratio, and inclusive culture serve students with MIDs and neurodiversities who need modified learning spaces to meaningfully access education. If my son could succeed in a mainstream high school of 1,500 students, he would be there. But expecting him to leave his disabilities at the door without adequate support in order to suit the new inclusivity mandate is not inclusion. It's the very definition of institutional ableism. The Ontario Human Rights Code is unequivocal. Students with disabilities have the right to meaningful access to education and appropriate accommodations free from discrimination. The code, which takes precedence over the Education Act and all ministry and board policies, defines discrimination to include policies that appear neutral but produce adverse effects for protected groups. In this context, several points authored in Bill 101, including mandatory attendance, unregulated school exclusions, and implementing resource officers, place students with disabilities in Ontario at a significant disadvantage. These measures constitute both direct and indirect discrimination against a protected group under the code. We must also acknowledge the reality students in spec ed face when they become overwhelmed in larger mainstream high schools. Too often they are suspended, excluded for safety reasons, or labeled as behavioral problems, rather than recognized as students needing accommodations. Data confirms that spec ed students, particularly those who are racialized, like my son, are disproportionately impacted by suspensions and expulsions. We know the formal data no longer captures this to intentionally keep the discrimination off the record. But the Ontario Human Rights Legal Support Centre has characterized unregulated school exclusions as an ongoing epidemic, which is also a violation of the code. Chronic underfunding education of an already marginalized population doesn't make fiscal sense, as every dollar invested in early interventions yields significant savings long-term on social systems. If integrated without supports, students with disabilities face increased risks of bullying, exploitation, anxiety, mental health challenges, and lower graduation outcomes. So when a small, well-supported learning environment like Eastdale disappears, the risk is not theoretical. Students
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, they lose belonging and risk being pushed out of learning altogether. Equity must be more than a principle written in policy. Equity requires maintaining learning environments that already work for vulnerable students. So I urge the immediate reversal of actions taken against Eastdale and its sister school, Hayden Park. Our community needs critical action to dismantle inequitable structures, not performative allyship on the part of our government. So when you ask parents to share their lived experience like this, we expect you to listen, not just to meet OIDA compliance requirements, but to fulfill your moral and legal obligations to our community, and we will hold you to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And the effective advocacy being conducted by the parents of kids at Eastdale and at Hayden Park in Toronto that are facing the same threat and that have been doing a model example of effective advocacy, which needs to continue. Kate, as we're bringing in our next speaker, let me offer a couple of thoughts. The first is we heard that the Toronto District School Board is saying that they're closing these programs because of insufficient enrollment. But a recurring problem at the TDSB and at school boards across Ontario is they don't do an effective job of letting parents know what programs are available so they can try to enroll in them. I describe the Toronto District School Board, for example, and I'm not singling it out, but I am a chair of its Special Education Advisory Committee. I describe it as like a restaurant that won't give you a menu. We've been advocating for 10 years for them to fix this problem, and it's not a costly or difficult problem to solve, to let parents know what's available and where to go to advocate for them. It's a recurring problem. The other thing I want to do is just remind parents listening or anyone listening, if you want action tips on how to do advocacy in this area, I host a podcast. Look it up. It's just called the David La Podcast. It's got a longer name, but available on wherever you get your podcasts except YouTube. It's not there. David, and then the next word, LE Podcast. And there'll be action tips, including later this summer, an interview I conducted with a retired elementary school principal specifically with tips for parents. Who's our next speaker?
Hi, okay, our next speaker is Allison. Thank you for joining us, Allison. You'll have 3 minutes. We're going to try and get the timer going again up here in the top corner, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Allison.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you to the organizers of this town hall. We are really immensely grateful for the opportunity to share our stories. I wanted to start by acknowledging the level of privilege that I have as an advocate. I'm a former public school educator and currently a professor at a faculty of education, a SEAC member. And I say that because even with this level of insider knowledge and social capital, I still struggle to be heard. I still struggle to navigate around the brick walls that we've been hearing about thus far. I'm the grandparent of a child with significant disabilities. He's nonverbal, he uses a wheelchair, has low vision, and does not use his hands. Every year around this time, I attend transition meetings and I ask a simple question: what support will my grandson receive next year? And the answer is always the same: regular classroom with indirect support. I understand the philosophy behind that. I support that. But I would just echo what Emily said earlier, another parent, that even though inclusion is an important value, and of course we want inclusion, inclusion without support is not inclusion at all. And it is, as she said, abandonment. It is the illusion of inclusion. And when I ask what specific supports I can count on, I'm always given a vague response. I'm told staffing isn't yet determined, the budget hasn't yet been set, we're struggling with funding cuts, we don't know what needs our incoming students might have. And so those discussions can't take place until September. And as a caregiver of a highly vulnerable child, that's incredibly difficult to hear. My grandson cannot go home and tell his parents how long he waited for a diaper change, or whether anyone was able to help him participate in an activity, whether he was given a sip of water or not on a hot day, as we had last week. He can't tell us if he was included at recess or if he spent part of the day isolated from his peers. So we depend on the school system to ensure that his basic needs, his dignity, his safety, and his participation are protected. Yet year after year, I'm told nothing can be guaranteed. The system seems designed to manage the expectations of families rather than provide clarity. Surely we can do better than that. Why can't schools be empowered to say your child will be toileted as needed? Your child will have access to recess and school activities. Your child will receive support for feeding and safety and have meaningful opportunities to participate in learning alongside their peers. These aren't unreasonable requests. These are basic expectations.
30 seconds remaining, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
What's missing is a clear provincial framework. There should be a directive from the Ministry of Education that establishes minimum quantifiable levels of support for students that can ensure schools communicate those quantifiable expectations, and they can be held accountable for meeting those. So I'm asking for a system that recognizes that some children are too vulnerable to advocate for themselves, and their families deserve more than uncertainty.
Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. I appreciate that so much.
Okay, well,
David, just to
yes.
interrupt, I believe our next speaker is in a bit of a rush because she's on a break from her job.
Okay, let's
So
get
we're
to
going
her
to
right
go
away.
right into her if we have her ready to go. Her name is Amanda. I'm just seeing if Bruce is trying to get her lined up. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure we can get the people who are here and if they've taken time to come and be able to tell their stories. Amanda, thank you for coming here today to speak with us. We'll allow you to go ahead. You have 3 minutes and I'll come on and let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, I am a spec ed teacher with the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and I teach kindergarten spec ed, and it's a beautiful program that gives students a wonderful start to school. But the only way that you can really get into this program is to know about it ahead of time, and like you need to go and register your kid for school in January in order for them to get into this program for JK. And it's not even time to register your kid for school until like March or April. So how are parents even supposed to know that they can register for this program? And then the kids come into my program and we have a lovely time because there's only 6 of them. I create individual education plans for all of them, and we still have a low ratio because we only really have three staff to 6 students, so 1 to 2, not including breaks when the other staff are gone, and then things can get crazy. But it's a nice environment compared to the regular school environment. And parents are so happy and their students are making gains, and we're able to toilet them. They get changed all the time. Like everyone is well taken care of. And then that time comes where we have to IPRC them back into the grade 1 classroom, and this expectation is put on me that I'm supposed to make the students be able to function in a regular grade 1 classroom over the period of 2 years, but a lot of students only get in for 1 year, and it's just completely impossible. So now all the gains and everything that we worked so hard for are going to be lost because their parents are now being told, okay, so they're going into a grade 1 classroom, and they're like, well, what's going to happen to my kid? And they're like, okay, well, they'll have some EA support because technically, since they did this program, it cuts down their ability to have intense support because they spent 2 years like getting them ready for school, so they should be ready now. But the reality is some of these kids' needs are too high. Like I can't work magic in 2 years. So the parents are then shocked with the fact that they're getting put into a grade 1 classroom and with limited EA support. So what are they going to do? And it's just such a disaster for the student and for the grade 1 classroom. It's not good for anyone. And even today, I was meeting with a behaviorist about one of my students, and he's nonverbal. He's very active, and we just started to teach him how to say words, and he's done in a few days. And I said, it's just really shameful that when he gets to grade 1, that he's not going to be able to work on these skills anymore. And the behaviorist was like, oh, well, with the right EA, but it's like, it's not
30
even
seconds remaining.
It's not even the right environment. So like here we have these tiny little bits of help that we can provide these students. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, help runs out. You're on your own. Good luck. And I've had students that have to be literally sedated to go to grade 1. And it's so sad. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments and for your dedication to your students. Kate, just as we're bringing in the next speaker, just one notification to everybody in the waiting room. We have somebody on the wait list. We're going to include them in as a speaker. We're going to go a little over 12 o'clock, but we certainly will be done before 12:30 to let our interpreters and captionists know. I just want to draw on what our last two speakers had to say. Before, two speakers back, Allison spoke about a child with multiple disabilities, one of which is low vision. It's important for an action or a tip or piece of advice for any parent listening is you're not alone. You feel alone, understandably, when you take on these challenges, but you're not alone. And there are organizations of parents identified by particular disabilities. So the Ontario Autism Coalition for Parents of Kids with Autism. For kids with blindness or low vision or deaf blindness, there's an organization, I'm on their board, called the Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children, or OPVIC. Website is opvic.ca. There's Voice for the Hearing Impaired for kids who are deaf or hard of hearing. And there's a number of others. It is really important for you to reach out to them. And Allison, I'd say, please reach out to us at OPVIC because we'd like to plug in with you. The other thing is disabilities don't come in silos. You're not either autistic or deaf. You may be both autistic and have hearing loss or cerebral palsy or some other condition. And parents would benefit from plugging into both kinds of advocacy groups identified by both disabilities. Unfortunately, the education system, I think wrongly, calls on school boards to identify, in the case of multiple disabilities, which is the dominant one. Well, a child who has autism and an anxiety disorder, you can't treat them as a kid who has ASD but not anxiety, or anxiety but not ADSD. It makes no sense. It defies reality and it fails to fulfill the duty to accommodate. But school boards are trapped by ministry directives, I believe, that force this on them. The Minister of Education can and must fix this. Who's our next speaker?
Thank you, David. Yeah, just before we get to our next speaker, just a note, if we have skipped over you and you were on our speakers list, it's because we haven't been able to find you in our waiting room on our Zoom platform. Please try and reconnect and we'll see if we can fit you in at the end. With that being said, our next speaker is Dana. Thank you for joining us, Dana. You will have 3 minutes and I will warn you when there's 30 seconds remaining. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you. My name is Dana Chapman and I'm a parent of a grade 2 student in TDSB who's blind. I have a photo taken on the first day of JK. It's taken from behind and it's of my son and me walking to school. I'm holding his hand and he has his white cane and his little backpack. And I keep it around because it reminds me of what bravery looks like. I was a TDSB teacher for many years, and I can truly say that sending my son into the system was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. I was terrified because I knew it could go beautifully or it could go terribly. And I knew that it hinged on the support he would receive. It's a sad reality that in a province like Ontario, parents of children with disabilities need to have courage to send their children into the school system. Children with vision loss rely on 3 professionals, a TSVI, an O&M, and sometimes an EA. A TSVI, a teacher of students with visual impairment, is responsible for teaching our children to read and write, to ensure that the curriculum is being adapted to meet their needs across subjects, and to instruct them in the expanded core curriculum, which addresses skills that children who have vision loss need in order to thrive. That expanded core curriculum is only being taught in a few boards in our province. And there are not enough TSVIs. There are many children in Ontario who aren't receiving nearly the hours that they need in a week to become literate people. Right now, the most hours a child could get is 10, and that's rare. Classroom teachers don't have the knowledge to fill a TSVI's shoes. Braille is complex and you need experts to teach it. Ontario doesn't have a post-secondary program to train TSVIs. Work needs to be done to recruit and properly train these invaluable professionals. TSVIs are retiring across the province and there's no plan to replace them. This model is not sustainable. O&M instructors, orientation and mobility, are the people who teach our kids how to safely move around their world. Many children across Ontario are not getting the O&M support they need. The best case scenario is 1 hour a week in some boards. In one board, there's one O&M teacher for 45 children. There's a huge discrepancy between boards, and there's a huge discrepancy between urban and rural settings. Ontario needs to build an infrastructure to funnel people into robust training programs and then into the school board. There's a lot of work to be done in Ontario to support children with vision loss, but it's possible. I can share from our own experience that we're lucky. Our son has reliable TSVI, O&M, and EA support each week. He's reading at grade level. His team are 3 of the most important people in our lives because they hold the key to opening up his world. It could have
30
gone
seconds
either
remaining.
way, but we're very lucky. I don't think parents sending their children into public schools should require courage. And I also don't think they should require luck based on where they live in the province. That's absurd. We know there's over 2,000 children with vision loss in Ontario. We know exactly what they need to be successful. And we know that there are pockets of schools like ours and school boards doing it better than others. This isn't a situation where we should go for the lowest common denominator. We should look for the places where children are having success and emulate those across the province. This is a very solvable problem. It requires funding from the province, it requires training and recruitment, and it requires a plan and strong leadership. And it requires decision makers to believe that our children are worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. That was phenomenal, as have all our speakers been. Kate, as we're bringing in our next speaker, I just want to add, this is a subject near and dear to my heart because not only am I blind, but I have a child with vision loss as well. I've been very involved in trying to advocate to the Provincial Ministry of Education on the very problems Dana was just talking about for over 8 years, and we've gotten nowhere. We get big smiles from senior bureaucrats and politicians, and thank you for your input, and yes, we need to address this, and even suggestions of some improvements, but nothing has actually materialized. Ontario is behind at least 5 other provinces and much of the US, in fact, much of the Western world, in training teachers of the visually impaired. Our standards in Ontario are far lower in training for them than in, like I said, 5 other provinces in many states, much less other countries. Who's our next speaker, Kate?
Yes, thank you, David. Our next speaker is Kelly. We'll bring you on, Kelly. You'll have 3 minutes to talk, and I will come on and let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you very much. I'm actually talking about the barriers that deaf and hard of hearing students who use a signed language face in accessing accessible education. The provincial demonstration school boards has limited spaces and very cumbersome enrollment. Public and Catholic school boards have limited to no ASL supports, and families are waiting to get their deaf and hard of hearing children into local schools near where they live. 50% of deaf and hard of hearing kids have a additional diagnosis, David, like you were just saying. So you can't just say, well, are they more deaf or are they more autistic? And for us, it's really about what language they use. So if they are ASL or LSQ users, then they need to be in an environment where there's ASL and LSQ accessible education. Another statistic is that 70% of deaf and hard of hearing kids, specifically deaf kids, experience language deprivation. So they're actually late first language learners, and they need ASL environments in order to flourish and acquire that language. The solutions are there. The will of the government has to be there. It is an obligation of the government to make accessible education for all students. And there's right now no accountability, and there's no ambassadors for accessible education for sign language students. There are workers, language acquisition support workers that can be hired in the schools. enrollment can be reduced in terms of all of the barriers that are experienced, so that if you're using a signed language or you have a hearing loss, you get into the schools for the deaf. If you are going to a local school, that there's ASL supports available, that the language acquisition support workers are available, interpreters are available that are qualified to work with children, and that ASL environment and accessibility supports are in the schools, so that those students have access to their peers, to the curriculum, to their faculty members, to the extracurricular activities. Right now, we have students that sit in a classroom for months waiting for accessibility supports, and they have zero access to the curriculum. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And yes, the government has to do better, and it's just will. They just need to have the will. The solutions are there.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Both the prior speaker, Dana, talking about kids with vision loss, blind or low vision or deafblind, and our last speaker, Kelly, talking about deaf and hard of hearing kids, are talking about kids with low incidence disabilities. That means that there's very small numbers of them in the overall system. In both cases, we know what supports they need. In both cases, those supports are too often woefully lacking. And they don't have the same capacity, because their numbers are low, to mount a loud advocacy campaign like parents can do when their children have a disability that's more numerically common. That's not to say that parents of kids with those disabilities that are larger in number have an easy job of it. Don't get me wrong, but even if they're facing an enormously uphill battle, the families facing or with kids with low incidence disabilities have this added burden of low numbers. Easier to solve because the numbers are low, but harder to get heard. And it's frankly hard for everyone to get heard. Before we start with our next speaker, I just want to remind everyone of a resource I announced earlier. I host a podcast that gives you practical tips on how to advocate on disability issues. It's called Disability Rights and Wrongs, the David La Podcast. Available everywhere you get your podcast except YouTube. Just search on David space La Podcast and you'll find it. Give it a listen. And among other things, we will be talking about barriers advocating in the school system. Kate, who's next?
Next, we have Logan joining us. Logan, are you there? I know Logan had asked for us to give him a call when he was going to be coming up next, and we've tried to do that, but it's going to voicemail. So I don't know if maybe they've stepped away from their computer. If Logan is not there, they're not turning they're not unmuting themselves. So I'm assuming maybe they're not there. We can try and come back to you after.
And Nabia, could you just send Logan an email, please?
Hello.
Oh, there's Logan.
Oh,
okay.
There you are.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, Logan. You can go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes, and I will come on when you have about 30 seconds remaining to let you know to start coming to your conclusion. Thank you. Go ahead, Logan.
Okay. I'm just reading from my book here. My son is diagnosed with extreme ADHD and low needs autism. So in March 2025, my son was dealing with bullying and was becoming dysregulated to the point of not wanting to be in school. I decided to take him out of school for half the day so we could break up the patterns a little bit. My family paid out of pocket to get him to a rock climbing gym each day for 1 hour. This helped, but it took a toll on my ability to study. I'm a student. Not having a worker to take him down meant it became my responsibility to do it. And lack lack of OAP funding means we can't access help like this, and instead hours are being taken out of our work days. Eventually, half the days became the last hour of school for regulation, so we were able to get him back on track as far as being okay with being in school. Still isn't a big fan of it, but he's managing. And the rock climbing continued till about April 2026, and that's when he wanted to explore something else. Similar regulation techniques should be happening at school, but my son doesn't like being split from his friends to visit sensory rooms. I honestly feel that school should implement more forest therapy, a daily forest visit to ground the kids before the day begins. And I feel like, it could be easily implemented, something like that, just to ground the kids. And I feel like the bullying would even probably stop. Us sensory stimulated folks don't like closed boxes. So I feel like forest walks should be involving everybody, and they should be happening more and more often, not just to ground the kids, but to connect the kids to the land. I just feel like it's a very essential thing, especially these days. Like the kids aren't out there enough, and there's not enough forest space on the school properties, or I should say trees on forest or on school property.
30
So
seconds remaining.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much
That
for
was
your
great.
thoughts. And as we're bringing our next speaker on, I know that people, as they're listening to us, will be wondering what the next steps will be. We will be making this video public on YouTube within short moments after this event finishes around noon today, Toronto time. And we will make public the link to it, and we encourage you to send it to your member of the Ontario Legislature, to your provincial or your school board, to anyone you can. Send it to your local media and urge them to cover these issues. It's the last week of school next week, and as people are heading out on their summer, the thing on the minds of parents of many students with disabilities is, what's it going to be like this fall for my child? Is things going to be better? Are they going to be worse? You're giving good practical tips on how to make things better. And this video think of it as an advocacy tool that you can use. Kate, who's our next speaker?
Thank you. We're down to just a handful of speakers left. Again, I'm just going to note that if you were signed on to speak and we've skipped over you, it's because we haven't found you in our waiting room. There's time if you are able to still join us. If not, hopefully we'll be doing this again in the fall. We've already been discussing that, and we'd love to have you join us again. The other thing I'd like to just note is that, as David's just mentioned, this video will be available on the Ontario Autism Coalition's YouTube page. On that post on the YouTube page, we will put in the notes all of the links to the websites that David has mentioned here that can help people. Our next speaker is M, and they will be joining us. They're going to leave their video turned off, and that's totally fine. M, you've got 3 minutes. I will come on and let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Thank you. Go ahead, M.
Thank you so much for organizing this and for hearing us. My child is a high school student, intelligent, masking, with ADHD and anxiety diagnosis. Formal ASD diagnosis was not pursued because mention it caused loss of access to mental health support. My child is also living with high conflict divorce. There are many problems. For example, my child was dropped off in SK at the wrong bus stop, but I want to focus on 2. One is expecting students to manage school-parent administrative communication, and 2, over-communicating and asking too many questions. So the first one, students of all ages are told, tell your parents to sign this or bring payment to this event. This reduces school-home communication to its weakest, most vulnerable link, a child with in my case, disability or diagnosis. When messages are missed, students are shamed, often publicly, for failing to do what we, the adults, should have done for them. Often they miss opportunities. I'm going to give an example. It's actually a positive one, but it was missed, a positive. So recently, my child earned an arts award, but missed the arts award banquet because I received the crumpled up invitation, even though they're supposed to be paperless, 2 weeks after the date. I received it from my child. Instead of finally celebrating their success, it made my child feel shame and guilt for not letting me know earlier. Well, I mean, it seemed like a big deal, but this is like a very recent example. Um, this is very challenging for kids with ASD, kids with executive function challenges, kids who have students who come from homes that have financial issues, so they don't want to pass that information. Now, I'm going to talk about the solution and then about the next issue, the solution. Stop using students as messengers immediately. Boards, my child is in the TDSB, have excellent digital tools like EMA, excursion management apps, and school cash onlines. Enforce them, ban using kids as messengers. It's especially harmful for kids who are experiencing divorce because they are just attuned to the parents and they're thinking only about that instead of thinking about their academics. My child was taken out of class to receive their IEP because there was an issue with the mail. With the mail was sorry, the Canada Post was on strike, and they received their IEP. They were taken out of the class. All the kids who have IEP were taken out of the class to be given them the envelope to give to the parents. This is a legal document. If the school has a problem, they should find another way, not the students, and not missing school time. Now, I want to talk about the other issue is over communicating with kids. So
30
children
seconds,
with a
just to let you know,
children
30
with
seconds remaining.
thank you. Yeah. So children with ASD have enough um, challenges with sorry, I just missed where that have enough challenges with communications, and well-meaning teachers often ask more and more questions instead of giving direct and simple directions. And watch the child and see how they behave and understand their answer from this. So I'm wondering if there are ASD-friendly IEP accommodations that clarify to staff how to, and more importantly, how not to communicate it. And I'm asking for it for years, and they just say we're supposed to talk with the child. And how can be it created? I want to also mention the lack related to what David Lepowski said before about the lack of recognition for mental health. Children trapped in high conflict divorces must be recognized as disadvantaged group. They face unique, severe barriers to accessing therapy, and forcing them to manage school bureaucracy steals the limited emotional resources that they need for academics. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for speaking to us and for all your really good suggestions. Kate, just while we bring in our next speaker, I know we're getting near the end of the list, but I wanted to remind everyone that we organized this event to give our education minister, Paul Calandra, a chance to hear
for all your
from parents of students with disabilities. And we didn't edit who would speak or say only if they say certain things. In fact, I'm hearing what people say for the first time. I have no idea what they're going to be telling us before they speak. We invited the minister to come to this event to listen and to also be able to speak to us. Of course, he's not going to be able to answer each of these points, but he could give us a sense of what his overall plans are to try to improve education for students with disabilities. Kate, do we have the minister here? We never heard back from our invitation because we told him we'd welcome a chance for him to say a few words. Is the
Nope.
minister here?
No, he's not logged on to our Zoom. No, I can
Yeah, no, we don't
confirm that.
have, do we have anybody from the Ministry of Education to speak on his behalf?
No, that was a nada. Nothing.
Okay, so let's get on to let's hear from our next speaker, next parent.
Great. Thank you, David. So next we have Ruth joining us. Ruth, you'll go ahead and you can have 3 minutes, and I will remind you or let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am an Ontario secondary school educator and also the parent of an autistic child with significant needs. She is a student at the Limestone District School Board. And I wanted to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today. The disability barrier I want to speak about today is not just one classroom, one school, or one service. It is actually a system level barrier. And it's the idea that inclusion and equity are the same thing. Again, I'm discussing our experiences with the Limestone District School Board. So the idea that inclusion and equity are the same thing, they're not. Equity does not mean placing every child in the same setting and calling that access. Equity means that every child has access to the support, environment, staffing, expertise, and predictability they need to receive a meaningful education. So over the past year, I began asking questions about autism special education supports in my daughter's board. This started because I was trying to understand what services were available, and even some of the board's own online links about autism and special education supports were not working at that time. As I asked more questions, I learned that the LDSB has eliminated all congregated elementary special education classrooms and replaced them with a tier school-based model. So direct autism classrooms, specialized staff, and other supports were repurposed back into the schools. Again, those district autism classrooms no longer exist. When I asked how such a sweeping change has been made, I was told it was informed by consultation with families, students, staff, and community stakeholders. I later reviewed many of the consultation responses myself. The question people were asked was not, should congregated special education classrooms be eliminated? It was not, should autism classrooms be closed? It was a broad question about what supports and services students with special education need to be successful. And what did people ask for? Well, they asked for more support, more educational assistance, smaller groups, more individualized instruction, greater access to speech language pathologists, psychologists, behavioral supports, and specialized staff. They asked for consistency, and they asked for timely help. What I did not see was a mandate to remove specialized classrooms. The board also acknowledged to me that the responses were not separated based on the level of support a student received. Families of children in congregated programs were not analyzed as a distinct group. Those families with neurodivergent and neurotypical students were all included in the survey. So they were not analyzed as a distinct group, even though their children were the ones most directly affected by the elimination of these placements.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, that is a major barrier. Decisions are being made about students with complex needs without meaningful studying of that group itself. I was also told the board did not have strong evidence that congregated placements were consistently improving outcomes, but I asked about comparative data. It appeared that the data was limited. That is not enough evidence to dismantle an entire category of placement for children with complex needs. The board said these programs served a small number of students, but that is not proof they are necessary. Congregated programs are designed for a small number of students with the most intensive needs, and that is the reason they exist. Since the implementation, based on conversations with educators, family stakeholders at the LDSB, this model has not created equal access. It has created confusion, inconsistency, in some cases, students with complex needs being expected to fit into environments that were never properly equipped to support them. So what needs to be done? First, the ministry must ensure every board maintains a meaningful continuum of placements, including specialized class options in practice, not just on paper. Secondly, tiered intervention frameworks such as Learning for All cannot be utilized beyond their purpose. They were meant to guide early identification, escalating intervention. They were not meant to replace specialized programming altogether. Third, consultation must be meaningful. If a board is considering sweeping changes to autism or special education programming, families directly affected must be clearly informed, specifically consulted and analyzed as a distinct group. Inclusion can be valuable, but inclusion is not automatically equity. Access to classroom is not the same as access to an education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you both as a parent and as an educator. We've had several, just as we're lining up our next speaker, we've had several speakers who are both parents of students with disabilities and educators, and they bring to bear their dual expertise, their dual points of view, and the fact that as educators, their message echoes that of all the other parents we've heard, really shows the power of the messages that we're hearing from everyone. Kate, who've we got?
Thank you. And this is actually our last speaker that we have in our waiting room. Again, if you are watching and wondering you thought you were speaking, we haven't called your name, it's because we don't have you logged into our Zoom chat. We have a couple more minutes. If you could attempt to log into the link that had been emailed to you. If you do wish to speak, please do so now. But we will go ahead with Mandy, our last speaker. And Mandy, you will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will come on and give you the heads up when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Mandy, thank you for your patience to sit it out till the last time slot. Go for it. We're not hearing you. Are you unmuted? We're still not hearing you.
Oh dear. I
Hey,
will
team,
say we weren't sure about Mandy because she wasn't one of our registered speakers, but she was in our waiting room. So we wondered if maybe she was using a different name than she had registered for. Maybe she stepped away because she thought she was speaking earlier.
Wait, you know what? While we're waiting, Bruce, you just had a point.
I was just going to mention that I've asked the person with that account to both start video and unmute, and I haven't received any response. So
Okay, well,
I
you
think
know what?
either she has
Let's
lost her
move.
patience or, well, I'm not sure what.
Okay, Kate, why don't you do give your closing remarks, and if she comes back, we'll have her after you before my closing remarks, and if not, we'll go from you to me. Kate?
Excellent. Yeah, this has been I caution to say that it's been wonderful because we're not hearing wonderful stories by any means, but it's so important that we come together and we share these stories and share these realities. So I want to thank each and every single person that has spoken here today. I want to thank everybody who's watching. We need to be paying attention. We not only need to be speaking, we need to be listening. And as we're approaching the end of the school year, it's an even trickier time I find for families to we've been fighting all year to kind of come out at this point in the year when summer's just about here and to share these stories again. It's difficult and it's tricky. And so we will be back in the fall, of course, and we hope to do this again because, as noted, we need to keep telling our truths. And I'll finish with that and go back to you, David, and for some final remarks.
Okay, do we have our last speaker, or we've not? We don't.
I don't believe Mandy is
Okay.
there, so let's just move forward, I think.
Okay, some quick thank yous again
Excuse
to
me.
Kate.
I apologize for interrupting. I'm not so sure if anyone can hear me, but
Yes.
one of our speakers did ask if there was a written statement which you submitted that can be read aloud. So I'm not sure if that's possible or not.
Do you have it? Do you have the
Yes,
written
I
statement?
do have it.
Okay, this is
yes.
this is our backroom tremendous support, Nabia. We're giving you a round of applause. Would you
Thank you.
please, could you read out the statement? That would be great.
Absolutely, yes, I can do. So let's see here. Excuse me, yes, okay. So this is from our speaker, Shanali. She says, in the public school system, my child and I have both faced disability barriers because accommodation and equipment requests for children who would benefit from special education and inclusion services are being put on hold due to a lack of funding for these supports in the elementary schools. Both parents and children technically have access to accommodations if there was funding to support. Children need access to psychological assessments at a much younger age through the school board. Children should not have to wait until their needs worsen to access special education and inclusion services because early intervention can prevent the need for more costly supports in the future. More funding should be allocated to ensure that children receive supports that will help increase their independence in the future. If taxes need to be increased, then they can definitely look into increasing revenues from different sources. Volunteers and placement students can also provide additional support for students while gaining more experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let me offer just a few closing remarks, and that's going to include my repeating some of the tips or resources we mentioned earlier. And Bruce, if it's possible to get the card, if you were able to develop a card for the two videos I sent you, you can post it now so people can see it. But otherwise, I'm going to describe this. First, thanks to Nabia for your great work in the back room, and to Bruce McIntosh, to Kate, my phenomenal co-host and good friend, all. Thanks to the Arch Disability Law Center for funding our sign language and our captioning. Thanks to our captionists and interpreters. Thanks to all of you for speaking, and for those tuning in to learn about this, and to all parents of students with disabilities. Thank you on behalf of your kids and on behalf of our society for your advocacy. Your advocacy may feel isolated, it may feel uphill, but frankly, it is the difference. It will make the difference between your child getting what they need and your child not getting what they need from our school system. I believe our school system is full of educators, principals, teachers, education assistants, special needs assistants, and others who want to enable all kids to learn and succeed. But they work in an education system that handcuffs them. The handcuffs take two forms. One is underfunding, and we need to advocate to change that. But the other, more funding alone won't be the complete solution, because the other thing that handcuffs them is an education system full of barriers. And those barriers take many forms. It can be bureaucratic barriers, like not treating mental health conditions short of behavior issues as a condition that the special education system even recognizes, like not recognizing ADHD as a condition which the special education system recognizes. Barriers like schools, old and new, brand new schools and old ones, replete with disability barriers. Information technology replete with disability barriers. Playground equipment, gym equipment, teacher training, which does not ensure that teachers can teach all learners, are equipped to teach all learners. And many other bureaucratic barriers, procedural barriers. Now, one of them is that we're leaving it to 72 separate school boards to figure out how to get around these barriers. And they don't know how, or if they know how, they aren't necessarily committed to. It will vary. Parents shouldn't have to fight this. Educators should not be handcuffed. We know what's needed. We know we need substantial new funding, but we also need to remove those barriers. Take those handcuffs off educators. The government has a blueprint on how to do that. They received it in January of 2022. It was written by experts in the field of education for students with disabilities that the government handpicked, as experts from the disability community and experts from the community of educators, teachers, trustees, school board administrators, and all points in between. I had the privilege of serving on that committee. There were great people. We didn't all agree on everything, but we came up with a consensus-based agenda for reform that is the blueprint. It's time it's implemented. What do you do about all this? We have action tips for you, and let me summarize. First, sign up to get updates from the AODA Alliance. We'll have lots of practical tips for you, and we'll keep you updated on what's happening on this front. Just go to www.aodaalliance.org, aodaalliance.org, and right up near the top, there's a link to sign up to get our newsletter, our updates. Get them, read them, share them, use them. The Ontario Autism Coalition has a tremendous Facebook page. Just search for Ontario Autism Coalition. You'll get many great action tips that are relevant to students with autism, autism and other disabilities, or disabilities that aren't connected to autism at all. We don't live in advocacy silos. Also, I've mentioned two videos that I encourage you to take a look at. One is a video that I created a few years ago with tips for parents of students with disabilities on how to advocate for your child at school. It's on YouTube. It's free. Just search on YouTube for tips for parents of students with disabilities. Tips for parents of students with disabilities. As well, the Human Rights Code guarantees that school boards accommodate students with disabilities up to the point of undue hardship. It's part of the duty to accommodate that applies to everyone who hires, employs, or provides services to people in the public. I provided a video that you can watch that gives you an introduction to that duty. Just search on YouTube for Introduction to the Duty to Accommodate People with Disabilities. And finally, a podcast that I host is designed to teach you how to do effective disability advocacy, even if you got no experience in it whatsoever. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts except YouTube. It's got a long name, but really all you need to search on is David La Podcast. It's Disability Rights and Wrongs, the David La Podcast. And we'll have episodes coming up later this year, 6 of them, dealing with the specific world of education and advocating in the education system. But the tips we give you elsewhere apply to you. I want to conclude by saying this, just 2 things. The first thing is that we haven't asked school boards to respond to what we heard today, and they would not be able to respond to individual cases. They're not allowed to. And we've not investigated what any parents have to say. I don't distrust or disbelieve a word that we heard. But you know what? If we assumed that 1/3 of what we heard was either overstated or not accurate, or there's another side. And I don't have a reason to believe any of that, but let's just assume that was true. We still have a big problem in Ontario. Voices respecting families of different disabilities, different school boards, different levels of the school system, people who didn't get together to rehearse and that we did not know what they were going to say in advance. They all unite to show that we have a system that needs to be fixed. We know there are ways to succeed, and we heard examples of families who had found solutions that worked. But not enough. Not enough places, not enough times. And for those who've succeeded, they still run into the risk that what they gained through their advocacy last year might be gone next year. I said I had 2 points. Here's the second. And with this, I'm going to wrap up. People ask whether you could be an optimistic. Isn't it so uphill? Isn't it hopeless? My answer is, and I say this at the end of each podcast, hope is not something someone gives you. Hope is something we have to create. Through your advocacy, that's what you're doing. So wherever you are, wherever your child goes to school in Ontario, please keep being exactly what you are, parents. Disability barrier busters. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a good day.
Just right before we go, I just want to chime in with one last thing. We were unable to put the links and the videos that David, you were discussing up on the screen, as if we wouldn't have been able to have the ASL interpreters there at the same time. But just as a reminder, on the Ontario Autism Coalition's YouTube page, we will have all of the links that David has discussed in the notes section there. We'll get that up and loaded in the next little while, so that they'll be there for you to access. And then the last thing I wanted to note is, once again, if you were set to speak today and weren't able to make it, or there were technical issues, we will be attempting to do this in the fall, and we will get to you. We encourage everybody to continue sharing their stories, and we would love to touch base with you again then. And that's all from me.
Thanks so much. The information will also be up on the AODA Alliance website, and we will be including it in an upcoming AODA Alliance update, so sign up for our newsletter. And with that, you're really finally rid of me. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.
Thank you.